Hey, it's the 19th of January. This is my development diary, I suppose. I'm Chris. How's it going? So, this is a bit of a post-mortem really on what I learned from the wiki and what I'm doing moving forward. Now, if anyone doesn't know, about a year ago, roughly, well, almost exactly a year ago in January, I released the game The Wiki to monumental kind of kazoo sounds. Okay, and there were several reasons why the wiki didn't really take off. Okay, if I've got to be perfectly honest with you, it wasn't ready. That was one. I felt quite pushed to get it out because I've been working on it for 5 years, and there was still quite a lot of bugs. There was still a lot of problems with it, and in many ways that led to certainly a drop off very rapidly. Okay, I mean the wish list was a couple of thousand, and I don't think 2% of that list purchased it at the outset. Now, a wish list is really no real indication of how popular a game's going to be, don't get me wrong. There were other reasons as well. Okay, so we had the mechanical failures of the initial release, which I fixed, took about 3 months, and what I ended up with was, a seriously much improved game. It was way, way better. But gate open, horses gone. Secondly, some of the initial kind of reviews for it, because of the issues it had, well, if the reviews are unfavorable, that's one of the first things people look at. So of course, again, gate open, horses gone. And trying to encourage people to kind of look at what you've got is difficult. Okay, really difficult. A big problem in the indie game sphere is people are like, oh, you should get a YouTuber to play it. Get a YouTuber to play it. Good luck on that. You'll find someone who's got like maybe 12 followers to play it for like 20 minutes. But you really will have a job getting one of the major YouTube players to play it, because they want money. Basically, this is their job. You have to negotiate with them. It's usually like 4 figures minimum for a decent YouTuber. So, good luck if you've got that kind of money. Great. I also used something called Keymailer, which was expensive, but the idea was that it sends keys out to various press and media outlets. Was completely useless. I might as well just burned the money. I don't think anyone actually used any of the keys that were sent out, and I think they pretty much ignored the mailing that was sent out by Keymailer. So this is supposed to be useful. It was utterly unuseful, to be quite honest with you. The only things that were useful really are the kind of things that I suppose you'd expect, which is direct word of mouth, people who are friends, all this kind of thing. But by this point, I've gotten disheartened with it, because this leads us to problem number 2. Okay, so problem number 1 being obviously the marketing and all that kind of bump. Problem number 2 is the wiki is a horror game. Now, when it comes to genres, horror game is a very small genre. Okay, it's not popular. I mean, it's popular with the Resident Evils, it's popular with the Silent Hills. But apart from that, horror games tend to be in a very, very small niche. Okay, very small niche. And if you add Lovecraftian into that, it gets even smaller. So it's a tiny niche you're trying to get the attention of. And a lot of people are like, I don't want to play a horror, I don't want to play a game that's going to give me jump scares, I don't want all this kind of thing, which is fair. A lot of people want to play a game that's a shooter, for example, or they want to play a game that's something else apart from this. It's something I've considered for quite some time, a horror, unless it's exceptional, and there are a lot of very, 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 very good horrors out there. Okay, unless it's exceptional, or unless it's like literally clickbaity with like, jump scares galore and all the kind of crap that people like. Something complicated is going to work without a decent marketing budget, because people won't want to know about it. And this was the issue I got, people would play a bit of the wiki and they wouldn't get anywhere near where the slow burn build up psychological horror was, because of course they wouldn't. That requires patience, and so they just drop off. And so the horror tag. That was problem number 2. Problem number 3 is, again, social media. I didn't really enjoy engaging with social media. No one who's really an artist enjoys engaging with social media. Okay, I tried to find various ways to deal with that. One of which was I wrote the Brass Gate, which is a social media marketing system driven by RAG and various other kind of OpenAI tool sets to try and make my job easier in that regard. Non-generative, doesn't generate images, all that kind of thing. That's one of the things I did. Another thing I did was I took a step back. For 9 months, actually, I took a step back. Did other things, built tools to help myself, and just stepped away from the mess that was kind of what had been going on with the wiki. And thought to myself, well, shall I do a sequel? And originally the plan was, well, I'll do the Wiki 2, okay, and the Wiki 2 was going to be called the Wiki 2, the Brass Gate, which is why I ended up calling this other software the Brass Gate. And then it was going to be called Wiki 2 Asylum Rock. And then I thought, well, the problem I've got with the wiki won't go away, okay? The problem with it being a horror, the problem with it already, you know, people have gone over the wiki, the name, all that kind of thing, you know, people won't want to play it. And it kind of occurred to me, well, the pivot should be that it shouldn't really be a horror in the first place, should it? It was never really, when it comes down to it, supposed to be a horror. Secondly, a sequel to the wiki, I never saw the point. I don't see the point in. Okay, the story of the wiki happened, and just because almost nobody at all knows what the story of the wiki is except for me, it doesn't really matter. Okay, it's a very complicated story, but I can run something parallel to that. What I can do is I can pivot the wiki, or rather the wiki's non-sequel, into being a detective who comes in 20 years later to find out what happened in the Outer Islands, which is where all this is based, and it's all been, you know, fenced off and quarantined since World War II. And this detective comes in to try and find out what exactly did happen to Lily Malin and Tempest Malin and the other inhabitants of the island, who all vanished seemingly, you know, overnight during a storm back in 1936, in order to close the open case file that's going on there. And this means detective game, which is a whole different way of doing things compared to horror game. Horror game is creeping around, horror game is stealth, horror game is, monsters, you know, all this kind of thing. Detective game is investigation, and more investigation, exploration, puzzles, and deductions. And a lot of the deduction is on your part, and that works fine for me because I've already got the infrastructure in place. So that's what I've been doing, and if I just turn my camera over here at the minute, what you can see is this is the island of Pandora's Rock, okay, which I'm currently working on. And up here, this window here is basically an asset purge. I'm clearing out a lot of the old assets that I'm not going to be using anymore. So basically things that maintained a lot of the horror ambiance, or, you know, a lot of the things that were the horror mechanics and so on, aren't going to be in the Outer Islands. The Outer Islands is a detective thing, you know, set in the 1950s. And like I say, you're going in there and you're going to look and try and find out what happened. And it's a very, very different atmosphere. It's a very, very different game. But the good thing is that because the existing infrastructure of the wiki, i.e. the underlying story, the underlying sets, and all the other things exist, they just need to be used in a different way. Because this is something someone was saying before in an article, you know, why don't people reuse game sets and game worlds? And for the most part, because they've been built for a very specific purpose, okay? They're not built like a real world, you know? The maps and the topology and all the other things of the world don't exist in a sensible way that allows things to be built on usually. In my case, the islands of Pandora's Rock, Gondola Rock, and all the other ones, Gondola Island and all the other ones, Asylum Rock, they do follow a logistical build pattern, which means that they can be aged and I can do all the other things to them that need to be done in order to make this work. So what I'm doing, or what I'm going to be doing, is basically working my way through this and getting this to a point where I can release the first part of this, which will be ran over several days of, you know, the detective staying at the island and all the things that happen there in order to find out what's happened before he finally gets back to making his report, okay, at the end of the game. And there's a lot of exploration, there's a lot of opening new areas and all the other things that should be in this, okay. So hopefully that'll attract in a whole new and ideally interested audience, fingers crossed, etc, etc, etc. Okay, so we'll just have to see what happens with that. Pardon me. So, pardon me, that's development log 1. This is the gate, the outer islands, which is the current test name. Hopefully only a few hours from now this should be finished on the deleting of the assets. One can't but hope. So in the meantime, got any comments, or you want to ask a question, or you want to do anything at all, please knock yourself out. You're more than welcome to. And I will see you real soon. You take it easy, okay? Bye bye for now.